Hey there. This week we have Dulce Arma coming in to give a Q&A with the Faceless to talk about his experiences and his methodologies with DJing. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of a dummy and forgot to hit record for the first 10 minutes. But we pick up here talking about the intricacies of like multi-genre sets and stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoy.
Get through those challenges because those sets are a lot harder than sticking to a genre. But when you get them right, they're so good.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I find it hard to do like energy management, I guess, right? Try to feel out what the crowd actually would vibe with the most.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest parts of a multi-genre set, because you could change to a genre. You could start with a genre everybody loves, change to one that everybody hates, and then you start freaking out a little bit. But if you can tell at least a little bit of a story, build that progression into each genre up on your BPM changes and all that stuff, I've noticed that the crowd's a lot more willing to stick out something that they might not like. But in general, yeah, it is hard for, like you said, energy management to keep that flow going in the heat of it all.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
You can go.
Oh, sorry. I was wondering, like, when you're building your library, like you're preparing for a set, right? You're like, I want to do hard style, I want to do fucking disco, whatever. How do you organize that in your computer? Like, do you have folders for different libraries, or do you just organize it all through like the DJ software?
I organize most of it through the DJ software. Anything that I do buy off of like Beatport or any of the other music distribution sites, I will categorize them into the genre, but I don't go much deeper than that. And a lot of people hate my file management system for that. It works for me, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I do. Most of it ends up being like hardstyle set 02/17 2025, and I'll just like throw songs in there and do stuff like that for like a playlist. But the majority of the songs are usually in something that's just named what genre.
Cool, thanks.
I have a question. When you first started out, how did you go about like matching yourself towards beat matching and phrase matching for your song? I'm still like doing that.
Lots and lots and lots of practice. What I did that helped me the most is I found a BPM tapper on my phone. Whenever I would just have like downtime or I'm listening to something, I'll try to tap in the beat to whatever song it is and try to hear why, or I'll tap it and then I'll like try to guess in my head what I'm doing in terms of BPM rates. That helped me a lot. Just try to figure out, if I'm going this fast, it's 128, or if I'm going this fast, it's 150. That helped a lot with my ear being able to hear the BPM of the song, because I'm sure a lot of other DJs do this. I might be the only one too. I tap the side of my DJ controller all the time throughout all my sets, and that's how I usually will beat match. I'll be tapping on one side and beat matching with the other. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of practice like that for me. That's how I got used to it a lot of the time, or throughout my years.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. Relating to that, I find myself hardly. I rely on software perhaps too much. It sounds like you do a lot more manual beat matching. What's your methodology on the more manual style of beat matching versus letting the software do its thing?
So I do a mixture of both. I do beat sync every so often when I know a routine is coming up where my method of manual beat matching isn't really going to work in a timely manner. It's usually with dubstep songs or like hardstyle songs when I don't have more than like 15 seconds to be able to get it done. But when I do go into my manual phase, where it's usually chorus to chorus or breakdown to breakdown, I'll usually beat match the breakdown of one song to the chorus of the other one while it's going and let it play out at the right time once I feel like I got it there. I try my best to not use B-Sync as much as possible, more to challenge myself than to not use what's available on the board. That started when I did a DJ set at a club near me, and they had CDJ, I think it was like 2000s or whatever.
Yep.
And it did not
No
have
beat
beat
sync.
sync. I was like, oh God. I learned really quick that I that's a very valuable thing to know. Because being self-taught, I was just like, why would I ever learn how to do that? I just have a fancy little button right here that'll do it for me. But no, that did not last very long.
Yeah, I would be at a loss. I would fumble so hard. So you
I made it work. It wasn't fun, but I made it work.
That dovetails into IRL experience. So you've done some club stuff.
Yeah, it was a few clubs in my local area. Nothing too crazy. It was just a bunch of like housey stuff. So it was really easy in that situation to actually be able to, recover my mentality a little bit. But yeah, I've done a few. How many was it now? 5 live shows so far in my past 4 years. I don't do enough advertising for myself, so I don't get a lot, but they're fun. And in my personal opinion, I really do compare VR chat and them in a lot of different ways. They are completely different in every other way, but like the crowd reading and all that's not too dissimilar. Even though people seem to think it's like not possible in this game.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Well, especially with full body users, right? You see people dancing.
Like the VR chat camera.
What's up?
Would you use like the VR chat camera as like your instrument for like seeing the crowd while you're working with your deck, and just like have that on, or do you maybe like with that?
I actually, so if this was my DJ board, I put my software right in front of me, as I'm sure everybody else does. But then I turn the opacity of it down to a level. It depends on the map. I usually do 75, but I've gotten really good at seeing through it to see what the crowd is doing. When I first started doing it, it was really hard to see what the crowd was doing, to be fair, but I'm looking through it a lot more than I'm looking at it. So I can see what the crowd is doing a lot of the time. That or, the quick peek around the window.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. So you use like Access Overlay or whatever for seeing your DJ software?
Yeah, I use Access Overlay. Set it so I can't touch it with my VR hands because I've changed songs by accident just by raising my hand at the wrong time. That was lovely when that happened.
Well,
Yeah,
makes
I
sense.
have opacity, see right through it, see the crowd. I mean, it's not perfect, but thankfully, a lot of people in this game like to put a lot of lights on their avatar, so it's a lot easier to see them through a dark window.
Yeah. Get the emissives going. Interesting. I'd love to hear your setup as well. What sort of decks do you use, and any other things, any other tips and tricks you have around DJing in VR? Because it's a whole rigmarole.
I'm sure a lot of people would tell you my setup's actually relatively simple. It's tracking. Stop it. I do have a DDJ FLX10, the predecessor, or the new DDJ 1000, and I don't do any XLR audio out yet. I'm working on that, but my setup is kind of wonky with it because I do have wireless earphones. But yeah, it's just FLX10, USB out, digital audio into OBS through the microphone line. I've noticed works really well. Thank you, Recordbox, for that.
Interesting.
And then with all my software, I use virtual cables within the computer, obviously, with for the visuals. It all has a slight bit of delay on it, but it's not usually all that visible, I've noticed. The worst is the 18 millisecond delay I have on these headphones. I've gotten really used to it. But yeah, my setup's actually relatively simple in my opinion. One of these days I did get a new Rode mixer that I'm working on trying to get to work. I'm trying to split the audio so it doesn't play through my microphone so I can still talk in VR chat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the best way of routing it to my headphones as well with that setup, but that's for the future.
Interesting. Yeah, I've seen lots of little jank workaround setups with virtual audio cable, right?
Oh man.
It's
I
a chore.
try my hardest to not use it for anything going to the headphones. That is like, unless you want to deal with 30 millisecond lag, I don't recommend ever sending anything through a virtual audio cable to your headphones. For DJing purposes, of course.
Good advice, yeah. Makes sense. What other questions do we have?
You mentioned about reading the crowd. Do you like have a folder of like say if you need to break out certain songs or things like that during your set, you just like slip them in during your transitions in between? Like a little backup.
Yes and no. Going with the question earlier about how do I organize my music, a lot of it is really just in folders that is what main genre they're a part of. But I do remember a few songs that I keep in my head. Like number 28 is like Hardwell Spaceman, like a remix of Hardwell Spaceman in, like hardstyle or something like that. And I'll like bust like that out when I know I need it. But yeah, it's a lot of it's just going through the big playlist. I try to keep them under 200 songs because I've noticed once I get over 200, I kind of start getting lost and everything. But yeah, no, I just remember what songs I have in each playlist and bust them out when I feel like I need it.
Okay.
That is a very good method though, and I do recommend that. My brain just doesn't work that way.
Interesting. Cool. What else we got? I'll ask some hardware specific questions then. I have a Flex 10 too. How much do you utilize stems? What's your philosophy there, if at all?
Oh, it's like every set. With the FLX10, you get the stem cutoffs and you get stems for your effects. I use the effect stems a ton. Like if I want to put some sort of like skip on my music or put reverb on the music to kind of bring the vocals out more, or the reverse. I do that. I use stems for those things more particularly. Thankfully, Rekordbox has been getting really good with their stems, and I've been, good enough for what I do at least. I'm usually able to cut out vocals and do an acapella over another song to kind of change up its vibe a little bit too. That's the main things I usually do, or mix the background beats of two songs together that work, like by cutting out the vocals of one or the other.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you use Rekordbox?
Yes, I use Rekordbox 6, the whatever the latest update is. I forgot. I've been debating going to 7.
Oh, interesting. I haven't taken a look. Oh, apparently they lost audio in Discord. Jank setup. Let's try restreaming. There we go. Hopefully they can hear now. And yeah, I really like that FX part separation. It's a really, really powerful tool. I find that Rekordbox's stems kind of suck though.
Yeah, they do. The vocals, I've had the best results with trying to cut out vocals, but you need a backing track to it. It doesn't really do a very good job at killing all of the little artifacts on either end. Unless I want to go to virtual DJ, which I don't really want to do, I'm kind of stuck with it for now. But I've heard Rekordbox 7 stems are better, which is why I'm kind of debating on going to it.
Interesting.
I'm
yeah.
always afraid of going into a new major update for anything after all my audio issues that I was having.
Reasonable. Yeah. Makes sense. I found that the new stems are interesting, but they don't save. So every single time you load the track, it has to recalculate the stems from the beginning of the track.
Yeah.
which is terrible because sometimes, I'm just, shelling in the track at a drop and the stems haven't computed that far yet. It's like, oh, you don't get those.
Yeah, it's fun when you're trying to do a quick transition, like in particularly dubstep for me, where all you have is a build up to get it done. And
Yeah.
it's just taking like forever to load the stems again. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my god, record box, please.
Classic. Neat. Who else has any questions? Because I can keep asking stuff all day. Leave adequate space. Okay, sure. I'll keep asking things. I got a whole litany. I'm ready to go. Oh, you can probably hear me in. I just realized. Okay, there we go. Cool.
Yeah, you're fine.
My bad. Here, I fixed that. Much better. Sorry about that. Weird jank. I was going to ask, yeah. So, getting yourself, marketing yourself in VR or lack thereof. I know you said that you haven't done a whole lot of IRL marketing. Have you had a strategy for increasing your reach in VR? Do you have like target venues? What's your strategy there, if any?
I've been very lucky. I don't do a lot of advertising. When I really don't do a lot of advertising. I go to clubs and hang out with the people that are there. The most I do for my advertising is probably my group above my head is named DJ Dulce, so people know that I'm a DJ. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like interacting with people, I'll usually go out to clubs that I've heard once or twice about and try to go talk to the people there, just see what the vibe is, if I could even match the vibe, to be frank at first. And then the meme of, hey, is there open decks after this event? And kind of just prove myself if I can. I know a lot of owners will get kind of irritated with the, hey, is there open decks after this event? Because I'm sure they get asked it all night, but that's how I've done it. I tend to not ask if I feel like the vibe is off, but that's usually all I do is open decks and just chatting with people out in the clubs that I don't normally go to.
Neat. Very cool. All right, what else we got? I can't be the only one.
Ask away.
Yep. The worst thing you'll get is a no. And that's not a rejection. It's just
Exactly.
sometimes they want the event to end right then and there. Sometimes they'll keep going. It's that's what I've learned, to be fair too. There's a lot of clubs out there that do like it, and they will just enjoy because it's cool. Like having somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, can I DJ for your event?" It's almost like humbling in a way. I used to own my own club, so when I had that, I was just like, "Why you want to play here? Why would you want to play here? This is crazy."
It's an honor,
So I
especially
understand
if
that whole
someone's
side of it.
first.
Uh,
Do you find
and hearing all
RL?
the new people
Oh,
play.
I'm
and
sorry,
all that.
delay.
Fantastic. You're good.
Delay. Do you find you had mentioned you had played a few gigs RL. Do you find opportunities like open decks with RL as well, like playing
House
an after
parties?
party
Yes.
for yeah.
Like at clubs, you usually have to go in and kind of do the whole trying to talk and figure out who the owner is and kind of mingle. Tracking, stop that. It's a lot harder to go into a club and say, hey, can I just play after this DJ? Because a lot of the time they'll just be like, no, because who the heck are you, right? But at least where I'm at, I should say, it's different in a lot of different places. But yeah, I usually have to end up calling people like over the phone, just introduce myself, say, hey, I'm gonna be coming by, I have my DJ, or all what I play, all that fun stuff. And then I'll go to the event, chat people up, talk to the bartenders, talk to any of the security that are there, and try to find my way to the right people. It's a lot more involved of a process where I'm at. There are clubs out there that I've heard of that do do the open decks thing after the event. It's usually 1 or 2 because noise ordinances and all that fun stuff is always stuff to think about. But it is not nearly as open as VR chat is, that's for sure. And it also could be different. Where I live is a lot more, I hate saying the word, but a little bit more stingy with who they have play.
Sure, that makes sense. Interesting to hear about that IRL networking.
Did you have any mentors? People that helped you to learn or inspired you?
My buddy in gaming was my first real mentor and aspiration. He's the one that pushed me to get my first controller, which is the DH400. He's the one that showed me how to set up all the software, how to get OBS right when I first started. I taught myself a lot of what I know, but if he didn't push me into the right direction early, I don't know where I would be today, to be fair. So he's definitely the first. I have a few these days. A lot of them are actual IRL DJs, because one of the unspoken things that DJs don't really talk about is once you start DJing, you hear other people DJ while they're playing. When you're, you don't really meddle with, how things work or what a reverb is or any of the fancy terms. You don't really hear it as much as you do once you start actually messing with everything and seeing how things react to specific sound effects, or how 2 songs mesh when they have 2 different cadences and all that fun stuff. So a lot of DJs like Sullivan King, Vastiv, very heavy dubstep guys, I've gone to theirs and been able to, like, hey, you're putting reverb on that drop right before you let it go, and that sounds awesome. And then they'll transition over to a whole different song, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm using that. That was so sick.
I love that DJ.
That was one big thing for me. DJ is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. I'll never hear the flanger the same again. Every time I'm like, oh.
Yeah, dude. Or you hear that slight misalignment of the beat or the beats, and you're just like, fix it. And nobody else can hear it. You can though, because it's like 4 or 5 milliseconds off, but you hear it.
Oh yeah. Yep. I'll ask more IRL questions. I think I find this to be interesting. You mentioned that there was the 2000 series, right? And a lot of clubs these days have like the 3000 series. But what all have you seen different clubs have? I assume you've gone to just a couple of clubs in your area, but like, what's your experience on equipment and interfacing with it?
I love all-in-ones. All-in-ones are the perfect thing for someone who's been VR chat DJing, grinding to go into the IRL scene, because they're literally just a giant controller. So if you see that, you're probably going to be fine, because you have a little screen there, and the deck is essentially laid out the exact same. Whenever I see the 2000s and 3000s, though, I usually have a little bit of a panic, because they are, especially the 2000s, they're nothing like a DJ board. Sure, the layout might be the same, the loop ins and outs are relatively in the same locations, they do relatively the same things, but there are so many buttons, like the beat search keys on my FLX10 do not work like that on a 2000. Like and you can go in and set a lot of these things, but I don't have 2000, so I don't know that yet. But a majority of the clubs out here will tend to either have a DDJ XDJ, I believe is what it was.
Oh yeah.
Or 2 2000s with a Nexus 4, I believe it is. I always forget which one it is, but the club that I played down in Santa Monica that one had 3000s, and I loved those. Those were the closest thing I've ever gotten to doing, CDJs and being almost identical to what I do here on my FLX10. It is still way different though. It's a whole different thing. You need to learn your beat matching over the ear. You have to be able to look at a song without being able to see the other song and figure out where you need to be placing it on its own solo monitor, because they don't do the stacking on the 3000s yet. I believe that's the 4000s that got that. I could be wrong about that. That could be the 2000s I'm thinking of, but it's a lot of those things. A lot of things you can learn on a DJ board, but a lot of people don't think about it. You gotta learn all about that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. I had an opportunity just last weekend to spin on 3000s for the first time ever on IRL equipment, and it's scary. Spooky.
It's intimidating, that's for sure. If you have a Guitar Center near you, a lot of those will have some that you can actually rent out into their little booth, which is usually pretty cheap. Like, I think by me it was like 25 bucks an hour or something like that, which is expensive, but it's cheaper than, you know, the 10 grand setup.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it makes sense to grab those for a couple hours.
I went in there. Yeah. I guess one tip, call ahead of time. Figure out what they have. Don't show up and just be like, I'm here now. Let me just figure it out. You'll not have a good time.
Yeah.
That was my first IRL gig. I just showed up. Luckily, it was like an ex DJ, but it was still like scary because I didn't know exactly how everything worked yet fully.
Yeah, I had to get some very critical pieces of advice, like you can't use SoundCloud and Beatport link, or those aren't going to work. You gotta have all the songs on the USB, which seems obvious, but you know, in retrospect.
Yeah, some of the CDJs you could probably get away with it. Well, not CDJs, the XDJs and stuff, you might get away with it if they have good Wi-Fi. But if you have, you know, 200-300 people in front of you, they're probably also on the Wi-Fi, so you're probably not going to get that song.
Oh yeah.
Download all your music locally for sure. It will save you, and the processing's a lot quicker, which is always nice.
So much nicer. I've heard that 2000s are a lot slower in processing than the 3000s are. And you have to like be very intentional with your actions, because it takes a while to load a song, and then even things like beat jump take, you know, a quarter of a second or whatever to actually take effect.
You do have to plan ahead. Whenever I know, or I say whenever, like I do it all the time. When I knew I was going on 2000s, I went to the Guitar Center, like I was stating earlier, practiced on them, and I learned that very quick that you need an ample amount of time to, one, figure out where you are in that song, get the beat matched correctly if you even have the time to do that. But on the 2000s, you're stuck doing that. So whenever I'm planning out a set and I know I'm doing a CDJ 2000 setup, I'll usually try to give myself a 30-second leeway if I can. If not, then hotkeys are your best friend. Well, even if not, they're your best friend anyway. Just make sure your library is ready for that set. Get them in order, the order you want to play them, all of that fun stuff, especially on the older hardware if you know it's coming up.
Yeah, it makes sense. Two questions to kind of dovetail off that. One of them, you said in VR you kind of prepare a crate and then wing it off the crate. I assume, based on what you're saying here, that IRL is a bit different, that you prepare a set ahead of time, or what's your thought process there? Do you have sets that you place more importance on for when it comes to preparation?
You can wing a set IRL, but I can almost guarantee you, unless you are one of the best DJs out there to do it, you're going to mess up. One, being on unfamiliar hardware, and two, you have the crowd in front of you. You'll have that pressure on you. So the more preparation you can do ahead of time helps a lot. IRL, I do not wing any of my sets. I don't feel comfortable with that enough yet. In VR, I feel like there's a lot more I don't even feel like there is a lot more leniency in VR, and the main component of that is the studio monitors that like a club will have are a lot better than the things that you wear on your ears. The bass, if the bass has two different keys, for example, the subwoofer won't bounce correctly, and it'll sound like garbage, for example. Or if the hi-hats, if you have two different cadences and the hi-hats aren't similar enough everybody will be able to hear that, and you really want to get that stuff like learned and ready ahead of time for little things like that. Is yeah, I don't want to be that guy.
I know you mentioned like briefly before about feedback. I was wondering, like, I don't know, like my fear is like, right, like I go up on stage and I'm just like terrible, and no one says anything, and then I just keep DJing, and it's just like like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, like, how do you gauge like how well you're doing? Like,
That's when crowd reading comes into play. The crowd, they might, well, some of them might vocalize it, but for the most part, their body language can tell you a lot. I've noticed when you start getting feedback where your subwoofers aren't able to produce the sound that you're meaning to produce, a lot of the times you'll see the crowd when they're bouncing, they'll either stop entirely or you'll see like a wave. It was weird. It's really hard to explain, but you'll see like the crowd kind of doing this thing unintentionally. And I've noticed when I was doing that, is I saw that and I realized, oh shit, I'm going from a 1A, right? Yeah, 1A to a 3B. And you really don't want to do stuff like that with bass lines in particular. Hi-hats, you can kind of work around it, but yeah, that was a really cool thing I saw. I was like, wait, this is nuts. But yeah, crowd reading, to answer your question more directly, is your best friend. And to kind of tie what they asked earlier, having that, folder of stuff you can pull out that you weren't really planning on pulling out to kind of bring that energy back up helps a lot too.
The panic button, the break glass in case of low vibes.
Quick, break out ISO EXO. Let's go. We're good.
The country rhythm button.
Yeah. For the dubstep.
That's a good song.
I guess this is more kind of an audience question, but like I'm a deskie, so usually I've only got access to like Go Go Loco standard emotes. Like, would you see that as somebody like liking what you're doing and moving to the music? Like, I want to, I kind of want to, be able to tell a DJ that like I like their set, but I can't dance. I don't have fig.
I don't suggest doing this IRL, but throwing snowflakes at the DJ is usually a very good way of telling people that you're liking what they're doing. At least I think it's become pretty common knowledge now in the DJ scene. For the first part of that question, whenever I see, Dusky doing the classic control spam of just up and down, I usually take it as a good sign. Yeah, the snowflakes.
Yes.
But it's a lot harder to read because you don't know if they're doing that because they're bored or if they're doing that because they're excited about what's coming. So while it is important to still look at that, I tend to take that with a lot more of a grain of salt than the people that might actually be in full body or even half body. You can still see it through half body as well.
Thanks.
But snowflakes is a very good way of doing it.
Yes. I was just having this discussion the other day. Do you know the origin of snowflakes? I'm going to leave it as an open question so I don't bias it. Why snowflakes?
I actually do not know what the origin was. I just noticed people started sending it. I was like, okay, I'm down with this.
Fair. I had a guess, but it's probably just wrong. I mean, like the guess is like, it's a fire mix. You got to like cool it down a little bit, right?
I wouldn't
My
doubt
assumption
it
was
being
just
that.
like the animation, that it's like
Yeah.
this big falling thing.
Okay, yeah, it's
That
just
too, yeah.
very expressive. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just
Yeah, I
curious.
have no idea. I've always thought like shelter was part of its upbringing, but I honestly have no idea.
Hmm.
It just started happening, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool. I like this. This is nice."
Yeah, it's good feedback. I always appreciate getting that energy. It feels good. Well,
And hearts, of course, fire.
Yes.
All of those emotes. Just don't throw coal.
There's
No,
the
it's right next to
coal.
the snowflake button too.
Oh
I've
my
sent
God.
that so many times by accident.
One time I accidentally
I love
threw a
that one.
fucking tomato. Yes. I remember one time I threw a tomato and I felt so bad. I'm like, no, I spammed the snowflakes. I didn't mean it.
Accidentally throwing out
I'll
charcoal.
usually try to play it off and like dodge it. And
Felt so bad. Well, we are at about time. Anybody else have any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. Anything you want to plug, share with us before we wrap up?
I guess check out my YouTube. That's I upload all my sets up there. Well, not all of them. Any of them that I deem worthy. I guess. I'm a big critic on myself, so I don't upload as much as I need to. But I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm starting the process of posting when my sets are in my group. So if you want to see some of my sets, join my group. It's DJ Dulce on VRChat. But other than that, I don't have much else to promote right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. And coming in and doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
That's fun.
Alrighty. Take care.
Yippee.
The snowflakes,
Oh,
yes.
no, that's the call.
Hey, the goal.
No, the goal.
Snowflakes.
Yes.
It is now snowing in VRU.
Oh, that would be cool to have like a little weather. Yeah, the snow wall. Be cool to have like a little weather toggle for the whole VRU.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, like
There was supposed to be a weather system.
Oh, the
Oh,
confetti.
I haven't seen much.
You saw lightning. You said that. Whether it's I saw lightning.
Usually fires,
Okay.
snowflakes, go. Lots of beer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ghost.
Oh, I dig that. It's
Oh, the
sick.
custom emotes have been fantastic. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I do love the Raver.
I'm gonna need that.
I don't know how to do it.
I think this is the highest compliment.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
damn.
Oh, I throw it
Oh
in the
my
air.
god.
Great.
Wow.
Escalation from the snowflakes.
Jeez.
I have some fun with cyber.
That's funny.
Funny. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming in. Means a lot.
Thank you, Dulce.
If I
Stay sassy.
actually teach something.
Prophet says thank you and stay sassy.
Oh my goodness. Not sassy.
Oh, you've been leaning into it lately.
You might as well.
Right?
It's not gonna stop.
Oh my gosh.